That's cool. So what would you say if somebody was listening to this or reaching out to you and they were asking you for uh, maybe a piece or two of advice on building that relationship with the city? Could you speak or offer any free nuggets of wisdom for that?
It's a little bit of a political game, right? And I'm far from being a political person, and I know the rest of our board, they're the same way, but you have to speak their language. You know, you're not going to move the needle by just trying to push your agenda. And so at some level, you need to speak their language. You need to find out what's important to them, right? It's in the parks department, obviously programming for the local community is going to be important for the city council. Programming for the kids that live in the city is going to be important. And if you're going after, say grant money for example, from the hotel motel advisory committee, if you have that opportunity in your city, for them, what's important is getting heads in beds, right? People in hotel rooms. And so people eating in their restaurants. And so know your audience, know what's going to move the needle for them and and tell your story to help move that needle, right? You want them to be advocates. You don't want to constantly have to fight and battle with them because you're going to need things like we need while we're autonomous and run this track, for them, this public facility for them. We also need their help, right? And if we're constantly fighting with them, it's not going to do anybody any good. It's not going to do us any good. It's not going to do the city any good. And more importantly, it's not going to do the kids in the neighborhood any good.
BMX Breakthrough is bridging the gap from old school to new school, from tracks to manufacturers, from new riders to their local tracks, and it doesn't stop at racing, but the mission is to connect people with bikes. Join me, Jay Oaks, as I interview key people in the sport and in the industry that are involved in their local circles, in their communities, at their local tracks, and aiming to make a difference on a local level. You'll hear stories, marketing tips, failures, successes, and a way to make a difference in your local BMX community. Let's dive in as we kick off this next episode. I'm excited. Jamie, I'm super excited to have this conversation with you. You've made jokes multiple times about wondering why we should have you on the podcast, but I am just so excited because you have done some really cool things through SeaTac BMX and been a part of the community, and you've gotten into BMX with your son. And so, anyway, I want to start by just would you go ahead and introduce yourself, who you are, and the role and how long the role that you play now and how you got into BMX.
Yeah, sure. Jamie Stenson is my name. 49 years old. I'm the out track operator at SeaTac BMX. I kind of fell into that role about 3 years ago when the opportunity presented itself. Uh, I'm relatively new in the BMX world. We started racing in 2009, and it was really just kind of a fluke thing. Like we accidentally stumbled into BMX racing. I didn't even know it was a thing growing up. And um, so my son was 5 years old when he started. He's 21 now. Like I was just telling you a few minutes ago, he went off to college, and my wife told me you're spending too much time at home now that Zane's off in school. You need to find something to do. And so the opportunity to become the track operator came up, and we have a great group of board members that operate the track, and here we are going into our third year.
That's awesome. Which you said, so you made a comment that you're kind of new to BMX, but you've been around for what, 16 years now.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I mean you've been in BMX for a while.
I have been. But I'm kind of of the new school age, right? Like I'm not.
That's fair.
So Zane and I, we've done a lot of traveling with Steve Clark, who's a Northwest legend, right? we've taken many road trips with Steve Clark, and he's a BMX racer from back in the day. So, like, I compare myself to like racers of that ilk, and I'm just a baby in the sport. Still learning to this day.
I love that perspective though, because I have talked to, okay, I'm going to answer your question right now. I didn't know this was how I was going to answer your question, but so you asked why I wanted to have you on the podcast. I want you on the podcast because of that statement, because of your willingness to learn and the fact that you've been around for 16 years. There are people that have been around for 2, 3, 4 years that are and track operators that I've met that they know absolutely everything that there is to know, and clearly because of the way the growth of your track and the way that the community has got on board, it's pretty obvious and apparent to me that you don't have the mentality of having it all figured out. You're still learning.
Yeah, I mean, I think the minute we have it all figured out, we stop growing, right? My goal every day as a track operator, as an employee, as a husband, as a dad is to be better today than I was yesterday. And, if I go into everything with that mindset, I think that's the right thing to be doing.
I agree. Yeah, I agree completely. But I don't think that it's necessarily commonplace, and every job has that. But just as every job has people that believe the same thing that you do, and then believe the complete opposite, believe that they have it all figured out. In the
Hmm.
same way, in the BMX community, there are both riders and there are track operators that have the same opposing viewpoints. Um, and I think that it gives you a lot of credibility, and the fact that you guys have been able to build such a cool community is because you're openly saying, "Hey, I don't have this figured out. If you've got an idea, if you've got um, a suggestion, if you can do this better,
Hmm.
um, by all means, come on in, help us out."
Yeah, and I think that mindset for us as a group, and we kind of all have that mindset on the group, and it's given us the opportunity to take chances I don't think we normally would, right? And we all are aligned on what our vision is and what our purpose is as the nonprofit that operates the track. And, we're not afraid to be told no. I think a lot of people are afraid to be told no. Or if they get told no one time, that's the end of the trying, right? And so for us, it's we get told no and it's a learning opportunity. And our vision continues to stay the same and we continue to push towards that bigger picture.
Yeah. And you guys have had some big vision for BMX within your track. And I don't know, is that, I guess so we'll start there at the vision portion. Was the vision of SeaTac BMX, was that you, or was that a collaborative vision from the people that are surrounding you?
It's for sure a collaborative vision. Um, I don't think I I personally don't think any track, let alone business, can operate solely on one person's vision. I think you need to have a great, we were talking about you being, your specialty is building teams, right? I think you have to have a great team to be successful in anything. Uh, we're super fortunate with our group that we all kind of have the same vision. We may have different ideas on the path to get to that vision, but the vision is the same, right? We want to create safe space for the kids in our community, and we want to create a pathway for achievement for the kids that are training to get to that next level. And if
That's
we
good.
continue, and if we keep both of those in mind in all of our decisions and our path, I think at the end of the day we'll be okay no matter what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's good. And I think that with what you've done, or I guess my question of, was it your vision or was it collective vision? And I believe that I would have completely agreed with you that it's collective vision. But you being where you're at now, was was that what you saw for the track 3 years ago when you stepped into this role, or was it like a variation of that and it's gotten so much bigger and better since you stepped in?
I think where we currently are, um, I kind of always thought that this is what this facility could be, right? Holistically. It's not just about the track or the facility or the community. It's about all of it put together, right? And I always knew for as long as I've been coming to this track that this is what it could be. Uh, we just have gotten there so much faster than I thought it was possible. I mean, it's been really breakneck speed, and that's a testament to our board. Like, we all kind of have our specialties, and we stay in our own lane, right? And we collaborate on things we need to collaborate on, and we take the things that we're responsible for, and we run and just do it. And I think
Love
that
that.
that's how we've been successful in getting it done as quickly as we've got it done.
That's cool. It is so fun to see where SeaTac is. And I'm sure you've heard stories, and I would actually love to hear uh, if you've got anything to add into this. But I've heard that SeaTac before my time, that the first corner, I think it's in the same spot, but I heard that if the sun shined on it right, it used to glisten because of all the glass that was in the corner.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and and which is wild. Which it glistens now, but for a completely different reason. Your big SeaTac letters and your
Yeah.
asphalt turret is really cool. But my personal experience at SeaTac, again, a long ways from from where it is now, was there was a triple, and I think it was like on about around your third straight. I think the tree was still there, that you've kept, and the tree was there. And I just remember this triple that I crashed on, and I think I would have been probably 9 years old. And I opened my eyes, and I just have this vivid memory of being on my side and opening my eyes and seeing a piece of rebar sticking out of the dirt. And it was so wild to me. And I talked to my dad about it later, and he's like, "There's rebar on the track." Um, but from what I understand, SeaTac was kind of just a track that was like a hodgepodge collective of whatever we have. We'll build a BMX track.
Yeah, it was. Part of that is the track is built on an old housing development, right? So we're just north of SeaTac Airport, and where the track sits is an old housing development, right? And so I think part of it is when the track was built, they used the dirt that was there, and there's rebar and glass and rocks in it, and I think it was operated in in a way that a lot of tracks across the country are operated, right? On a shoestring budget, on the backs of volunteers, and you know, after work on Tuesday or Wednesday, hey, they have a little rock raking party, and uh, it's really just not the vision that we had coming into this, right? Like, let's think about this from a different perspective. Can we operate this truly as a business? Can we make good business decisions? And first of all, let's make the track safe, right? That's our number one goal. The track wasn't safe, and that was just from years, and it's been there since 1981, and just years and years and years of shoestring budget. We'll take whatever dirt we can get our hands on, that for free, and not to disparage anyone that ran or operated the track beforehand, right? I think that that's more commonplace than we think, and
Which
uh,
I do think I'll jump in real quick and just say I always thought it was kind of rad, and the fact
yeah,
that you can have a BMX track, and the fact that you can bring so many smiles, you can extract so many smiles from people's faces with no budget, but you can
Yeah,
also do what you guys have turned SeaTac into. And so you've got the really cool, let's just make a BMX track out of nothing. And
yeah.
then you can do it's you don't have to have the budget, you don't have to have the asphalt turns. It's some of that stuff is cool, but so I think both sides are really cool. So
I agree. I think so too. I totally think so too. I think uh, the sport needs a variety of different types of tracks. We as an organization just decided we were going to pave the corners and screen all the dirt and, you know, slurry the track and build the facility we built. I don't think there's anything wrong with a completely dirt track. You know,
yeah,
River Valley's 15 minutes away from SeaTac. It's a dirt track. A lot of people consider it like an old school dirt track. It's my son's favorite track in the country, right? Like it's just
that's cool.
it's whatever, whatever you like, That's what's cool about BMX.
Yeah. But I think to your vision and to some of the conversation that we've had is you can have a BMX track with anything. So I think the important thing is that a BMX track can be built of anything, and that's really cool. But your vision took it a step further from being a dirt track in Northwest Washington. It's well known for its amount of moisture coming down from the sky. And so if you have an all dirt track, it definitely limits the number of days that you can operate on that track. Whereas you had a vision to become more of a quote unquote community center, a central point of the community. And you guys have been able to have the pump track. I'm guessing that's SeaTac entirely, but the fact that you have the BMX track and the pump track at the same location just makes it a really cool central point.
Yeah, for sure. And when we built the track, you know, there was intention behind everything we did, right? Like we recognize that we're going to be a volunteer run organization. The track is going to be ran and maintained off the backs of volunteers. We're an open, free use park outside of sanctioned events, right? So the community can come ride the track whenever they want. And it rains a lot in Washington, right? And so what are the things that we can do to protect this investment and not burn out our volunteers and give the kids in the community and the racers that come to the track more opportunities to enjoy it. And so, if we just paved the corners and left the track dirt, you know, raced it when it rained, if it rained a little bit, we're probably canceling racing or we're closing the park. But if we slurry the track and we seal it and we minimize the opportunity for rain to damage the track, we can offer more programming days. And so, those kinds of things go into our thought process on the decisions we make.
Yeah. And that completely makes sense because it's not just building a better BMX track for the 1 or 2 days a week that it's open and functioning as a BMX racetrack. It's building something that's better as a way to invite the community into and bring new families. Because I didn't actually even know that your track was open as much as it is. So how often is it open and available for people to ride?
So during the winter, it's closed. So it stays closed from November until May, and then from May to November through the spring, summer, fall, uh, it's open. The city comes and unlocks the gates, and it's free use. It's an open public park from 9 a.m. until dusk every single day.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's great. So
Do you know? I mean, I would assume during the summer months especially, it probably sees quite a bit of use.
Yeah, so last year, so we just ran the numbers. So we use a company called Placer.ai to run Matrix and track use of the park. Last year, 32,000 people used the track from May to October. So uh,
Wow.
it's a community asset, and something that we talk about on the board level, and we're all aligned on is, do we want to build this this park in the middle of an urban area where there's kids that live in the neighborhood that can ride their bike to the track? Do we want to keep them from using the track? Well, I love BMX racing. I love it. I don't think there's any track operator in the world that doesn't love BMX racing. But more than that, I just want to see kids ride bikes, right? And if we have a barrier of you can only use this park if you come and pay us, I think we're doing a disservice to our community. And so we really believe in trying to remove barriers for us. And, you know, does that mean we might lose out on some stuff like a kid coming and getting a license and becoming a racer? Maybe. But at the end of the day, for me and for us as a board, this is about just getting kids on bikes. And whatever we can do to help that, if that means our facility is an open free use facility from 9 a.m. to dusk every day, then that's what it's going to be, right? And we consciously made that decision, and we're happy with it. We think it's great. Like when we show up to the track on a Wednesday at noon in the summertime and there's 25 kids riding the track having a great time, it's awesome. And it gives us the opportunity to talk to those kids and those families that are there like, hey, do you know we race here? Do you know that we have programming here? We have free bikes and free helmets and scholarship opportunities, and like it gives us the opportunity to have those conversations that we wouldn't be able to have if it was just a shutdown facility.
Yeah. Which I think too, the likelihood of a kid coming to the likelihood of you losing out on a kid coming to race because the park is open, I think is a lot smaller than the likelihood of a kid choosing not to come back because they can only ride when it's paid.
Mhm.
And so I think that's one thing I wanted to pull from that. But the other thing that I thought was so cool is there are a lot of BMX tracks that exist around the country and have existed around the country that the city has no qualms about dozing. And it's because they become an exclusive club and they are serving 20, 25, 30 people. And the city has no idea. It doesn't even, I mean, 30 people doesn't show up on hardly any town's radar. And so when they doze a track and they get all these people that are so upset about it, I don't think it really moves the needle. But to something that like you've built and you got your team has been able to create here, and there may be a side of like, we want to get rid of it, years down the road, they might want to get rid of it. We could bring in revenue, we could bring in housing, and we could put housing on this property. Okay, but if you have a big enough impact and a big enough footprint in the city, then it does become a focal point where the city goes, no, actually, there are a lot of advantages to keeping this.
Yeah,
And and so I can see that being a huge benefit for what you guys have created.
yeah. And we're fortunate. We have a great relationship with the Parks Department and SeaTac, and you know, they share our vision and they love what we're doing, and they're constantly pushing us to provide more programming and, you know, how can we remove barriers, and how can we keep this facility open year round, right? So
Yeah.
we have lots of meetings with them. We are constantly keeping that conversation going, and and to that point, we're also open and transparent about, listen, we will continue to do this as long as we love it, and we don't see any, end in sight. But let's remember, this is a volunteer run organization, right? And I mean, this is a great example of a public private partnership, right? We're a
Yeah.
private organization running a public facility, and uh, we love to do it, and we're going to continue to do it. But you know, you also have to be honest about who and what we really are, and have those conversations about, we're running your park for you. Uh, like, let's
And
make sure
maintaining it.
and maintaining it. Like, and we're happy to continue to do it. We want to continue to do it. Um, but how can we be better partners, right? We want to offer more programming. We want to keep the track open longer, and do those things. We only have so much bandwidth though, right? So how can we be better partners?
That's good. Yeah, and I think that's important. I think that this conversation is important for people listening that are trying to figure out that dynamic of working with the city. And I do think there are a lot of BMX tracks that are in existence that feel like they're having to fight the city on everything.
Mm.
And I think you're in a unique spot where you're not at odds with your city. I mean, at least from my perspective, it doesn't seem like you're at odds. It seems like the majority of the conversations you're really teamed up and partnering with them. And though there might be disagreements or pushback at times, seems like you're all kind of on a pretty good page for the most part.
Yeah, yeah, we really are. I mean, they've been great partners with us, and we recognize that we're fortunate that we're in a city that believes in open green space. I mean, the city of across the street from us is frisbee golf a frisbee golf course, and next door to us are two RC car tracks, and behind in the woods behind the track is, like 14 miles of mountain bike trails, and like, we have the pump track, and so they believe in the open green space concept, and they really pushing it, and we're along for the ride, and are willing to contribute whatever we can contribute.
At this time, I want to give a special shout out and thank you to our 2025 sponsors who are helping us make the mission of BMX Breakthrough happen, which is to grow the sport at a local level. These sponsors, you can find more about them in the description, and then you can use their coupon codes. And you may be saying, I don't need a coupon code, but I would ask you, please use that coupon code as a way to help us all track what we're doing together. It helps them, it helps us, it helps everyone. So at our gold level, we have Box, Mongoose, and Pro Lids. At the silver level, we have Dan's Comp, LRC, and Pro Start. And at the bronze level, we have Command Aviation, Crit Plate, Danger Snacks, Fly Racing, Gear Blocks, Justin Shepard Title Examiner, Lincoln Park BMX, Sign Dog Northwest, Sound Cedar Lumber, and Tasco. Once again, you can follow the links in our description to find out more about these phenomenal brands. You can find the coupon codes for some of them available there. And thank you so much to our 2025 sponsors. Now back to our episode.
If somebody was listening to this or reaching out to you and they were asking you for maybe a piece or two of advice on building that relationship with the city, could you speak or offer any free nuggets of wisdom for that?
It's a little bit of a political game, right? And I'm far from being a political person, and I know the rest of our board, they're the same way, but you have to speak their language. You're not going to move the needle by just trying to push your agenda. And so at some level, you need to speak their language. You need to find out what's important to them, right? It's in the parks department, obviously programming for the local community is going to be important. For the city council, programming for the kids that live in the city is going to be important. And if you're going after, the grant money, for example, from the hotel motel advisory committee, if you have that opportunity in your city, for them, what's important is getting heads in beds, right? People in hotel rooms. And so people eating in their restaurants. And so know your audience, know what's going to move the needle for them, and and tell your story to help move that needle, right? You want them to be advocates. You don't want to constantly have to fight and battle with them because you're going to need things like, we need, while we're autonomous and run this track, for them, this public facility for them, we also need their help, right? And if we're constantly fighting with them, it's not going to do anybody any good. It's not going to do us any good. It's not going to do the city any good. And more importantly, it's not going to do the kids in the neighborhood any good.
I like that. That's good. I completely agree is that on that level of the political game and continuing to, I mean, it's like the dynamic of debate. Like it's not very often that people go, "Oh, yeah, I should definitely agree with your side of things." Usually people
Yeah.
just get further into their hole. And so you have to be willing to bend a little bit and you're probably going to have to give a little bit. But I think that at the end of the day, building that relationship is that any of the any of the give that you've given has come back to you because you've been willing to give.
Yeah. Yeah. And you also have to recognize that the city is looking at your facility and your track from a different lens, right? And so you if you get told no, that doesn't mean it's the end of the story. You got to just
Yep.
find a way to get them to say yes, right? And so no
Yeah.
doesn't mean you stop. You just got to find a way to get them to see what your vision is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the reality is that the majority of tracks are sitting on a piece of property. Yours, for example, you could, I mean, there's 100 housing units
Yeah.
that's taking up the space for. And if you don't have a strong pull for the community like you guys have created, if you don't have a strong argument, the majority of tracks are operating as nonprofits, and so they're not paying, and they've got a land lease that is very minimal, and
Hmm.
so they're not really contributing a lot to the city. And so if there aren't people coming in, if the track isn't bringing in revenue another way, then at some point it just becomes it's a loss, and it's not a loss leader, it's a loss. It's a
Yeah.
negative. So I think your advice of making it make sense once you can get it to pencil on their
Yeah.
side and for them to go, okay, well, this at least makes sense to give it a shot. I
Yeah. I
think,
mean, they have a lot of things to think about other than, you know, kids on bikes, right? They have liability issues and financial issues, and it all plays a factor in the decisions they make. And so
yeah,
just be just be open-minded and transparent and willing to listen to them.
that's good. Yeah. And you can't be stagnant either, which I
Mm.
think is something that you guys have done. Or is something, sorry, something that you've done well to not be. Um
I was gonna say, if I'm stagnant already, holy moly.
No, you guys have done a good job of combating the stagnation and being able to bring in new families. So, what does that look like for you guys, or what has it looked like for you guys to get new families, new riders to the track?
Oh, I mean, I think early in the process of us, operating the track, it's been pretty easy because, we leveled the track. So, we've had this track in this location since 1981. It was really just a community track, you know, kind of a rundown, rebar sticking out of it, Uh, and we'd come in and we completely level the track, right? We build this beautiful facility, paved corners, slurry the track, all new sod throughout the facility, new paving in the parking lot. Like we beautify the area, fresh paint on everything. We beautify it. And so that is naturally going to attract the community, right? And so once we get them there, how do we keep them there, right? Part of that is like the vibe that we try to create at the track, right? We try to make it, and it's part of one of our missions, right? A safe, inclusive environment, and we try to build that vibe because we know that the track is what attracts people, but what keeps them there is if they're having a good time and they feel safe and they feel, you know, like they matter. That's what will keep them there, and that's what will keep them coming back. And so we try to create that vibe at the facility. And so I think naturally the improvements we've made to the track have been just kind of the natural magnet, right? And so the first year we grew 27% in ridership. The second year we grew 30%. Last year we didn't kind of leveled out. We leveled out and only grew 8%. And I think and I still think 8% growth is great, right? I'm okay with 8%. Um, but like our next portion of like kind of what is our vision and what do we want to do next? Like we've built this facility. Now what do we do? Let's grow the ridership. And how do we do that? We do that with programming and and things like that. So that's kind of like phase two of what we want to do.
Yeah, I like that. Which there's a lot to that. And
Yeah,
and you and I
there's a
have talked
lot to it.
and you and I have talked about elements of that.
Yeah.
And there's not an easy there's not an easy process to any of it. Nothing's going to be easy and it's not going to happen quickly usually.
Mm-mm.
But like you said, having programming available, I'm getting ready to launch our track operator coaching program. And so I saw your name pop up on there and getting ready to do that, which I think that, we can we'll talk in that about how to bring in new riders um, and it's tough because it's a process and we naturally have an attrition rate to areas. Every area is going to have a slightly different attrition rate. But the goal is that we're growing at least by 8% more than the attrition rate. Um, and
Yeah.
you guys saw some phenomenal growth. I think 30%, 20, then was it 23? Did you say
27,
27?
27%. Yeah.
Okay. And so I think that's phenomenal and that's rare in and of
Mhm.
itself. And but so amazing. And so being able to retain those people. Do you see quite a few people come in to try out racing that were riding the track midweek?
Yeah, for sure. We do.
Mhm.
And um, honestly, a lot of those families that do are families that we have approached while they're at the park, right? I know that every one of us on the board, from myself to Jeremy to Blue to Jackie, have approached people that are using the park as a free open space and talk to them about, hey, we offer programming here. We have summer camps and beginner leagues, and you know, like we love that you're coming here to use the track, but would you be interested in participating in some of this stuff that we're offering, right? And so I know that the majority of the people that have come to participate in our programming have been directly because we've approached them and told them about our organization and what our mission is and what we're trying to do. So we can't be there all the time. Like, so how do we get that message out? So we're in King County. King County, there's 2.7 million people in King County. Right now, we have 422 members, home track members. Not enough, right? How do we get more people to even know that we're here? Not a lot of people even know that we're here. And I mean, we have kids that live in our neighborhood that don't even know we hold races. I mean, it's wild. Like, and that has to change. And so how do we change that? And uh, and we're not sure, right? Is it advertising? Is it billboards? Is it social media? Is it, you know, we hire a program director to essentially, be a lifeguard on duty at the track during the day to talk to families that are showing up. And so we think about all these things and we talk about all these things internally and make decisions based on, what we think would best work. And so it's difficult. And I know that we're not the only ones, struggling with this kind of thing, but
Well, it is difficult because even to that, you mentioned, okay, do we advertise on social media? Okay, so if we have social media, the problem a lot of times is that the people seeing your posts are the people that are already
already
following
coming.
your
Yeah.
track. They're already going. And so then you can run an advertisement, but you run an advertisement to people who like bikes. Okay, well, there's a good chance that, maybe they're mountain biking already, they're at skate parks, they're at pump tracks, and they just don't
Hmm.
want to race. Okay, well
Hmm.
then you have to have a larger ad spend to start running it out to people who don't know what bikes is, and then you have a bigger barrier because then they're like, well, I don't even know what this is.
Yeah.
And it has to be a long-term play because just because you put an ad in front of me, it might take me it might take me 2 years before I actually get to the track. And I might have seen it, I might have been interested, but I know for Washington State, I the season is relatively short. And so from being able to see it and then all of a sudden, okay, mom and dad have planned all these trips and we're going on vacation a couple times. I'm going to visit some family, and then all of a sudden you get to the end of the summer, school's starting, and then we missed it.
Yeah.
And so it's not that I didn't want to go. I just missed it.
Ran out of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will say that I grew up growing up racing just north of SeaTac, and then I got out of it around 11 or 12, and then if I'm honest, I didn't even know that racing was still going on. I mean, I probably didn't really think about it.
Hmm.
Um, but I didn't know anybody that was racing anymore. I was in different circles. I was mountain biking. I was at the skate park. Never talked to anybody that raced. And every once in a while, I thought, oh, I wonder about the track. But I don't know when they race. And then it always
Yeah.
seemed like the season ended. And so it is tough. And so yeah, you really just have to constantly be in front of people. And then as we know, the biggest the easiest way to get somebody connected is inviting them. What you said is
Hmm.
the majority of people that end up showing up is because you walk out to them, you say, "Hey, I'm Jamie. Are you interested in coming to a race when we're hosting one?" And they go, "Oh
Yeah.
yeah, we'll try that out."
Yeah.
I mean, the majority of people are waiting to be invited to the dance. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um and one of the actually to wrap up this thought is that one of the biggest areas that I see within the BMX community that becomes a shortcoming is that the BMX community, we'll say the BMX racing community, is at the track all week. They're there for racing, they're there for practice, they're there to help out, which is awesome. Like, appreciate that. But they have no connections with the outside world. So there's nobody that you can then invite because you don't talk to anybody who doesn't already race.
100%. Yeah.
And
So how do we get those people that don't know about us to the track? right? And so that's the question we've been asking ourselves for the last 2 years, and we don't know the answer. We have some ideas on what we should and can do, right? And we're not an organization that's just going to sit back and wait for the answer to come, right? We're going to roll out ideas and we're going to do things that may not work. We're not afraid to take chances, and so our philosophy is like, let's find someone, and it's not someone already within our board because we're all tapped out, right? We're just volunteers. We all have real jobs. We all already commit a ton of our free time to this place and to this organization. Let's bring someone in to go get in front of people, because for us, that we think that that's the best way to do it, right? Let's bring someone in who can build out that programming, who can attract non-BMX people to the track, because I know the racers are going to come. They show up every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, right? Like,
Hmm.
I know they're coming. I don't need to attract them anymore. I need the kids that don't know about it to come.
Hmm. Yeah. And and I think that's one of the areas where it gets difficult. One of the things that I've talked about with a number of TOs now, and I'll continue to say it on repeat, is that the reality is if you post a picture of top level riders and they're fully kitted out, they've got the carbon helmet, the carbon bike, it seems really cool. But the person that most appeals to is the kids that are already there
Or their dads.
or their dads. Yeah. And
100%.
whereas the average family is going to go, yeah, we can't do that.
No.
Whereas if you can post a picture of a kid, there was a track in Southern California, and I was there. I was talking to the TO about he was talking about growing and reaching new riders. And this kid shows up and he's got sweatpants, gray mangy sweatpants. He's got a gray long sleeve shirt. He's got a Walmart helmet that it fits him well, but it's a goofy mountain bike, road bike combo helmet. He's on a DK Swift that was just clapped out, and it was and he shows up and anyway, and I said, that's the kid that you need to take a picture of and you need to post, because he ended up getting, I think he got second that night. And I said, brag on that kid, because I'll see that picture coming through my feed and, or sponsor it. And I go, well, I think we have all that stuff in the basement. Yeah, we could get you out there. You want to try
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
Because that makes it a low barrier of entry. The reality is you don't need $130 race pants. You
No.
need sweatpants.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, if
Exactly.
and so really being able to speak to, I mean, because the sport can get expensive. We can't deny that.
No,
It
for
it can
sure.
it can get expensive, but the reality is that stepping in your first few months does not have to be very expensive at all.
No, it doesn't. And we recognize the financial challenges that some families have, and that's one of the barriers that we discuss a lot about trying to remove. And we have scholarship opportunities, and all of our programming have a flexible price point. There's 3 different prices that you can choose from, and so we have loaner bikes, we have gear, we have helmets. We try to
Yeah.
remove all of the barriers.
Well, and I've brought some people into BMX in the last year, and I've told them, "Hey, don't go buy a bike." I said, "If you can, borrow a bike for an entire year. Every time you go to the track, ask them if you can buy a bike." And I said, if a track has, if you want to ask them to make sure that that's okay, you can, but don't run out and grab one, because one, your kid grows really fast. Two, if your kid doesn't want to do this after a year, then that's okay. But don't
Yeah,
feel like, I mean, that's why the track has loaner bikes, is to see if you're interested in this.
100%. exactly. And I tell families that all the time. Like, you don't need to rush out and buy a bike. We have
Yeah.
bikes here. At some point, a bike will present itself, and you'll have an opportunity to buy it. I
Well,
also think I think the thing you're talking about, kids fully set up in, factory gear, right? I think that that can present an issue for a community track like ours as well. You know, it can be intimidating for a new rider to roll up on a gate, and he's surrounded by a hundred riders there that have $500 helmets and a race jersey with their name on the back of it, a shiny carbon bike, and it's intimidating. And you know, I know for me, from my experience, like a lot of kids aren't gonna go into that group of people super comfortable and want to ask questions, and so how can we also remove that barrier, right? And so like when the very first day that we showed up at the track back in 2009, there was a race going on. I didn't know anything about BMX. Zane was on his little red line, pit bike, 12-inch wheels, totally the wrong bike, right? Like, I think he was wearing shorts and a short sleeve shirt. It was like we didn't know any half shell helmet, didn't know anything about it. And I went up to registration, signed up, and at that time the track had a track team, and the TM of that team saw us clearly. I looked like I was in way over my head, right? Like he saw it, right? And he pointed at a kid who was in this full factory gear. Uh, his name was Cam. Pointed at him and said, "Hey, Cam." And then he went up to Zane. "Hey, what's your name?" "My name's Zane." "Cam, this is Zane. I want you to take him and, make sure his bike is track worthy. And I want you to give him some pointers," right? And Cam took him under his wing, right? Walked him over to the Bike Master trailer, who's, another Northwest legend. Cut his seat post down because the seat post was too tall. Took the reflectors off his bike, right? Walked him up to the gate, explained the track, the kind of rules of the track, right? One direction, don't cut across track, all that. And then took a couple of laps with him, right? And then like Cam at that time, I think was like 16 or 17 years old, national level rider, NAG rider. He's there to train, right? That's what he's there to do. And he took the time to like take Zane underneath his wing. And so the following weekend, we were going to the track. I mean, that made such an impact on Zane, right? Zane would always be like, "Hey, can we go to the track?" The next question out of his mouth, "Do you think Cam will be there?" Right? And Cam was always there. And Zane had an ally, right? And so how can we remove those kind of barriers, right? And so for me, since we had that experience and it had such an impact on us, I do that all the time at the track, right? I see a new family show up, I'll grab an older expert kid or an older intermediate kid and be like, "Hey, Sean, this is Johnny. Johnny's new. Why don't you take him under your wing and give him some pointers and ride with him?" And it immediately builds that relationship. And so barriers can present themselves in many different forms, right? And we have to constantly be looking for them and try to break them down.
Well, and there is nothing that can put people at ease quite like an introduction.
Hmm.
And I think a couple things to touch on what you were just talking about. One, factory gear or, the full kit can be intimidating, but also helmets are intimidating. A full face helmet and uh, to some extent, I don't really care who you are in a full face helmet. You can look scary and you can look intimidating. And especially to a younger kid who's already feeling intimidated, you put goggles onto a full face helmet. Now I can't see you. You just look mean, and
Hmm.
especially if they're mirrored goggles. And the kid under the helmet could be a really nice kid. It could be a really nice adult. It doesn't matter. But the fact is, I mean, motorcycle riders have a look, and there are a lot of motorcycle riders that are super, super friendly.
Yeah.
But when you put, leather and the motorcycle helmet together, and it has an intimidating look to it. And I think I think bicycle BMX and motocross gear is very similar in that. And so being able to recognize that, okay, in my full gear, being able to tell my kids, hey, in your full gear, you can look kind of intimidating. Try to take your helmet off, try to go talk to somebody, but also the introduction.
Hmm.
And not only the introduction for a kid, because I mean, you talked about that, Kylan and Breck Johnson, Brecky
Hmm.
Breck, that's how their son got connected out at Lincoln Park. And there was an older rider that came over and um, took their kids under his wing, and that was great. But also to make a connection and, you know, go to go up to an adult family and be like, "Hey, I want to introduce you. This is Jamie. You should
Yeah.
meet Jamie. You should talk to him." And and immediately to just have somebody who introduces you, it makes you feel like you're a part of that community. And it can get confusing. You walk up to, your track, you've got some bleachers. But for some people, they'll walk up and they'll go, I don't know where to go.
Yeah.
And you've got pretty good signage, but there are tracks that is really confusing. So to have somebody that goes, "Hey, I want you to introduce you. This is
Hmm.
Jamie. Also, if you need registration, if you want to sit, come sit by us." And
Yep.
it's amazing
Yeah.
how far that personal touch will go.
Yeah. And I think, I think for us as an organization, we believe in bridging that gap, right? Creating that culture. And so, I know the more that I do it, I know the more that Jeremy does it, I know the more that Anthony does it, and Blue, we just spread that, right? And then that person that we introduce to that person, they're going to take that and they're going to pass it on, right? And so uh, it's just all part of building the culture. And I think as important as the track, the dirt is at a BMX facility, I think the culture is equally important.
Yeah. Oh, I think the culture is so important. I think BMX culture is really neat. But if we're not careful, just like anything, it can become very exclusive. And
Sure.
and I think BMX as a whole is a very inclusive thing,
Hmm.
um, by nature. And
And to your point, like I know all of the kids that are in the factory gear, full face helmets, like they're all rad kids, right? And they all love riding their bikes, and like they're not trying, for the most part, they're not trying to ignore the new kid, but they're there to do for a purpose, right? And sometimes they get so the tunnel vision, like, I got to do my training, or, I got to do 10 gates or whatever it is. They're not thinking about that other stuff. And so, you know, what's my responsibility into helping them see, hey, you like having this facility? You like having the vibe that's here? I think you need to be a part in creating it.
yeah. Or hey, you know how much fun it is to have a full gate of riders? That's what
Yeah,
we want to do for the other
yeah,
classes. As
yep,
the only way that we get full gates of anybody is by continuously having new people.
yep,
So yeah, it's it's neat. But I really do like what you guys have done. You and I have had some really cool conversations, and I think that see watching the transformation of SeaTac is not only fun from a perspective having seen it go and raced at different generations of the track, but also just as the legacy of it is really fun. Being able to see the multiple generations of riders that have gotten to experience it. And
yeah,
I mean, it was really fun. What was it? Not this last summer, the summer of 23. My kids and I had come down there to race, and that was the day that Alan Foster and his wife
yeah,
had showed up at the
yeah.
track, and he had raced there, and he had just visited with Gary Ellis, who had raced there. Um,
Hmm.
and so anyway, you just have these different generations that are seeing the track uh, go through different iterations, uh, and again, community is such a big thing, and I like the way that been able to connect the track with the community and working together and not butting heads constantly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is some butting of heads, but
Well, there's always going to
it's
be.
there's
I mean,
always going to be. Yeah.
I mean, that's how I don't think there's not much that gets accomplished if everybody just agrees all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah, that day that Alan Foster was there, I hope I didn't freak him out. I nerded out a little bit, you know.
oh,
But like, here's an example of, it's Alan Foster. Uh, he's just wearing regular, I think he was wearing Levi's and a t-shirt and a half shell helmet, right? And I look up, I was on the first straight bleachers, look up and I see this just random dude come down the starting hill and pull manual the first jump. And I was like, okay, who's this old dude? Like this is this is somebody here. And so, yeah, yeah, it was cool. I had him sign our door, and we have a door that it's kind of our wall of fame, and we have pros and um, people in the industry sign it. So
that's awesome.
went and grabbed the Sharpie and drug him over to the door and had him sign it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, him and we've gotten to hang out at Dirty Fest and a couple of times. And so when he was there, it was funny. I was going up to the gate and Scooter was up there and he goes, "Hey, you know that's Alan Foster, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And it was just like a couple moments later, Alan comes up and he goes, "Hey, Jay." And Scooter's like, "Wait, how does he know you?"
Yeah, it's so awesome. BMX is so rad. I mean, what other sport in the world can, you get on the gate with your idols, right?
Absolutely.
I mean,
Well,
there's very few sports in this world that you can get on the same playing field as world champions, as national champions, as Olympic champions, right? And it's special. It's really special, and it's our responsibility to try to keep it special.
Well, I mean, I've told people before, and I've said it in another episode, but there is a good chance that you could go across the country, you could be talking to some random person in Florida or North Carolina, like, very far away from Northwest Washington. You have no idea who this person is. All of a sudden, it comes up about BMX. And if you needed a place to stay, they would let you stay with them. 9 times out of 10, they'd be like, "Oh, do you want a place to stay?" Which would not be the same connection if you both had just found out that your kids played Little League,
100%.
right? No one would be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you play Little League. You want to crash on our couch?"
Yeah.
But BMX is a very, very different community.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, it's so small and niche. We try to take care of each other for sure.
yeah, it's pretty fun. But yeah, it's been so neat to be able to get to know you and then to see the things that you guys have done and to hear about some of your upcoming vision. And I'm excited for where SeaTac is headed and super excited for you and your team.
Yeah, we are too. We talked about, and you and I talked a lot at Grants about a program director, and one of our, kind of visions and goals and ideas, harebrained idea, is to hire a program director, right, to manage bringing in new writers and bridging that gap between us and the community centers and the YMCA's and the Rotary clubs and like other organizations that don't know about us, but we can maybe create partnerships and schools and get riders to the track. Um, and I've talked to a lot of people in the industry about like, should we do this? Can we do this? And like we want to pay someone to do this. Like this is a paid position. You know, I don't think it's fair to ask someone to do this on a strictly volunteer basis, especially if the end result is like them bringing in revenue to the track, right? And I got answers all the way from never going to work to, I mean, no, we don't think anyone's really ever done it. You should give it a shot and like be the test case. And so uh, we are this year we are hiring a program manager. And I'm super excited to bring them on. They're going to start in February, and uh,
That's awesome.
I'm excited about what, the possibilities of what this could mean for our organization and our facility and the kids that don't know about BMX. And so, you know, uh, I think
That's awesome.
it's a little bit scary, right? Because it's an unknown. We don't know if it'll pan out, but that's okay. We're willing to take some risks, knowing
Yeah.
this might not work.
Yeah.
Also knowing that what it looks like February 1 in 2025, it may look completely different February 1, 2026. And like what we as an organization and a board have always been willing to do is like adapt and change, right? We have this vision. We think we know what it should look like, but we also know that it what we think it should do may not work, and someone else may have an idea to improve it, and like we're not so stuck on what we want to do. We're willing to listen and change. So,
Yeah.
I think 2025 for us, I'm excited about where we're going and programming wise and bringing in more writers. I think it's going to be great.
Well, I'm excited. I'm totally behind your idea. I think that it's a cool opportunity um, for someone in that role. I also think that it's a really cool thing for a track to do. I think that people that are pushing back on it. I I don't think I don't think that makes sense. I get it, um, knowing enough within the industry,
Hmm.
but I think that it's a really good thing, and I think that it has the opportunity to really help to move the needle. And if the goal is to not just be an exclusive club, but actually to grow the sport, um, I mean the sport in and of itself is not growing right now,
Hmm.
and it has not been for years. And so, um, if all we're doing is trying what we've always done, it's clearly not working. So it's not going to get us to where we want to be.
Right.
And it's not just going to be like some random day. It's going to be like, oh, this worked now. So we've got to try something new. And I think for you guys to be able to step out and hopefully lead the charge if it works, and but be willing to lead the charge on innovation if it doesn't. So
Yeah, exactly. And I I I really believe it's going to work. I really believe this is a model that can be successful. And if we don't make decisions because we're scared of what it might do to the organization, whatever, then we're never going to be on the leading edge of innovation, right? And so, not going to let fear make decisions for us.
I like that. That's good. Not going to let fear make decisions for us, man. Awesome. Well, Jamie, we will. That is such a great place to wrap things up. That just like puts the bow on top. Um, Man, thank you for sharing. I know that you felt underqualified for or underdeserving for this conversation, but I just think it's a valuable conversation. I think you've done some really cool things.
Yeah, thank you. You know, just a dad running a BMX track or track operator to BMX track, just doing my part. Our whole organization needs to take the credit. We have an incredible board of directors, and we're just trying to push the envelope of what's possible.
Yeah. Well, and you've also made that very clear. I think made it very clear that it is not just you. I mean, you're the
Mhm.
at the moment you're the face of things in this interview. You're the face of SeaTac BMX, but you've made it very evident that you're not the sole solution for SeaTac BMX, and you've taken very little credit for that, which I think people can appreciate as well. But no, you and your team, it's been cool to watch, and I'm super excited for what 2025 is going to bring.
Yeah,
Thanks again. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your transparency and willingness to share what you've done. And um, share some of your new ideas.
Yeah, sure. Anytime, have any
Cool.
follow-up questions, just let me know.
Right on. Yeah, well, thank you. And yeah, I guess for people to find you, they can reach out to you at SeaTac BMX.
Yeah,
There's a Facebook, Instagram.
Facebook, Instagram, yeah, email.
Cool.
So you can go to our website, find out about all of our, the programming and kind of who we are and what we are and what our vision is. So yeah,
And the cool thing about your track is that if somebody's in the area, there's a good chance that they, unless there's like some extenuating circumstance, there's a good chance that they can ride the track whether or not you're racing.
100%. Yep. Come ride it.
Right on. Well, thanks again, Jamie. Appreciate your time, and we'll talk soon.
Cool. Appreciate it.
Cool. Have a great evening. Talk to
Yeah,
you
you
later.
too. We'll see you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us in today's episode. It is because of people like you and our sponsors who make this whole thing possible, because they have a desire to see the sport grow. If you would like to get involved in the mission of BMX Breakthrough, you can start by going to your local track, find a way to volunteer, help out, and serve there. Or you can go to our website, bmxbreakthrough.com, in order to donate, find out about sponsorship, or learn more.